First contact gone wrong. The Varen trade station hung in space like a massive crystalline snowflake, its 8 sprawling arms glittering with the light of countless windows and docking beacons. Each arm housed different species, their sections carefully climate-controlled and gravity-adjusted to match their homeworlds. In the central hub where the arms converge, creatures of all shapes and sizes mingled in the common areas, conducting trade and sharing information across the vastness of space. Sarah Chen stood at her security station, dark eyes scanning the crowd with practiced efficiency. After 5 years as head of station security, she developed an instinct for trouble. Right now, that instinct was screaming. A group of Kraxan warriors had just entered the trading floor, their metallic scales gleaming under the artificial lights, cybernetic enhancements pulsing with a faint red glow. "Control, this is Chen," she murmured into her comm unit. "We've got 6 Kraxan entering Trading Section Alpha. Running full profiles now." "Acknowledged, Chief Chen," came the response. "Be advised, we've got a luminary delegation scheduled for negotiations in that sector." Sarah suppressed a groan. The Kraxan and luminary were like matter and antimatter. They didn't mix well. The luminary were a species of energy beings who inhabited crystalline bodies, devoted to peace and intellectual pursuit. The Kraxan, by contrast, were militaristic opportunists who believed strength was the only currency worth respecting. She gestured to her team, positioning them strategically around the trading floor. Humans made up only about 15% of the station's security force, but they held most of the leadership positions. It wasn't favoritism. Humans had simply proven themselves uniquely suited to handling the complex interpersonal dynamics between different species. The Kraxan leader, distinguished by the more elaborate cybernetics covering his left side, stopped at a merchant's stall. His translator produced a harsh, grinding sound as he spoke. "Your prices are an insult. The Kraxan hegemony demands preferential rates." The merchant, a 6-limbed Zentaran, trembled slightly. "The prices are set by station regulations, honored customer. I cannot." "Regulations." The Kraxan's cybernetic eye pulsed brighter. "Regulations are for the weak." Sarah was moving before the Kraxan's arm completed its arc toward the merchant. She inserted herself between them, catching the warrior's wrist in a practiced grip. "Station security," she announced clearly. "I'm going to have to ask you to step back." The Kraxan's organic eye narrowed as he looked down at her. Like most of his species, he stood nearly 7 feet tall. "Human," he said, managing to make the word sound like both a curse and a challenge. "Your kind always interferes. We prefer to call it maintaining order," Sarah replied evenly, not releasing her grip. "The station's trade regulations are clearly posted in all major languages, including Kraxan Standard. If you have a dispute, you can file a formal complaint with the Commerce Board." A crowd was gathering now, various species watching with a mixture of concern and curiosity. The other Kraxan warriors had moved to flank their leader, their cybernetic enhancements humming with barely contained energy. The moment stretched like a wire about to snap. Then, making it worse, the luminary delegation chose that exact moment to float into the trading floor. Their crystalline forms cast rainbow refractions across the deck, a sight that would have been beautiful if it wasn't so poorly timed. The Kraxan leader's mouth twisted in disgust. "The light dancers," he spat. "They dare to conduct business in our presence." "The station is neutral territory," Sarah reminded him firmly. "All recognized species have equal rights to conduct trade here." The lead luminary, its crystal form pulsing with gentle blue light, approached. "We sense discord," it communicated through its translator. "Perhaps we can assist in finding harmony." "The only harmony I seek is the silence of our enemies," the Kraxan snarled, trying to wrench his arm free from Sarah's grip. Sarah knew the next few seconds would determine whether this became a diplomatic incident or a full-blown crisis. She clicked her comm twice, the signal for her team to move in closer, while maintaining eye contact with the Kraxan leader. "You have 2 choices," she said, her voice carrying clearly across the now silent trading floor. You can step back, respect station regulations, and conduct your business peacefully, or you can spend the next standard week in a detention cell while we process the paperwork for your deportation. Either way, you're not harming anyone on my watch. The Kraxen's cybernetic eye scanned her, probably reading her vital signs. He would find no fear there. Humans had earned their reputation for standing firm in the face of danger. What he would find was absolute certainty. Sarah knew from experience that most aggressive species respected clarity of purpose more than they respected raw strength. After a tense moment, the Kraxen leader's posture shifted slightly. You would risk war with the hegemony over a merchant's prices. I would risk it over the principle. Sarah corrected him. The station's rules apply equally to everyone. That's not negotiable. A low rumble emerged from the Kraxen's throat, their equivalent of a laugh. Humans, always so willing to die for their principles. He straightened up, and Sarah allowed him to withdraw his arm. Very well, Security Chief. We will conduct our business according to regulations. Sarah nodded professionally, though she maintained her ready stance. Thank you for your cooperation. The Commerce Board representatives are in Section C if you'd like to discuss trade policies. As the Kraxen warriors moved away, their leader paused and looked back at her. You know why my people respect humans, despite your physical weakness. Because you are the only species mad enough to face death without flinching. We prefer to think of it as having principles worth standing up for, Sarah replied. The luminary delegation approached once the Kraxen had departed. We observe that humans continue to fascinate us. The lid luminary communicated. You achieve peace through the willingness to risk violence. It seems paradoxical. Sarah allowed herself a small smile. That's humanity in a nutshell. Walking paradoxes who somehow make it work. She touched her comm unit. Control, situation resolved. Return to standard patrol patterns. As she watched the trading floor return to its normal rhythm, Sarah reflected on the Kraxen leader's words. Humans had earned their place in the galactic community not through superior technology or overwhelming force, but through their unique combination of determination, adaptability, and unwavering principles. They were the mediators, the peacekeepers, the ones who could bridge the gaps between vastly different species. Sometimes that meant standing firm in the face of danger. Sometimes it meant finding creative solutions to seemingly impossible problems. And sometimes, like today, it meant being just crazy enough to stare down a cybernetically enhanced warrior over a merchant's prices. Just another day at Varen Trade Station. The luminary's crystal form pulsed with curious patterns. We have observed that in times of crisis, other species either seek out humans for assistance or flee from their presence. Why do you believe this is so? Sarah considered this as she watched her teams resume their patrol routes. I suppose it's because humans are predictably unpredictable, she said finally. We'll always try to help if we can, but we're also capable of surprising even ourselves with what we'll do. The breaking point. 3 days after the trading floor incident, Sarah Chen stood in Varen Station's central control room, watching as red warning indicators bloomed across the holographic station display. The Kraxen hadn't left after all. They'd been waiting, planning, and now they were making their move. Status report, she demanded, her eyes fixed on the spreading red zones. Her second-in-command, Lieutenant James Rodriguez, pulled up detailed schematics. They've taken control of Environmental Control Sector 7 and are threatening to shut down life support to the entire arm unless their demands are met. We've got at least 20 heavily armed Kraxen warriors in there, and they've locked down all access points. Their demands. They want control of the station's trade regulation systems. They're claiming the current system discriminates against species of strength in favor of weak philosophical races. James's face showed what he thought of that argument. Station Council is in emergency session, but they're deadlocked. Some species want to negotiate. Others are pushing for immediate military response. Sarah studied the schematics, her mind racing through scenarios. Environmental Control Sector 7 regulated atmosphere and gravity for nearly a quarter of the station's habitable space. If the Kraxen shut it down, thousands would die before emergency systems could compensate. What about evacuation? She asked. Already started, but it's slow going. Some species can't be moved quickly without special equipment. The Aquarian delegation is particularly vulnerable. Their water environment takes hours to properly transfer. A new alarm blared, and another section of the hologram turned red. Sarah swore under her breath. They've taken auxiliary power control too. This isn't just about trade regulations anymore. They're trying to take the whole station. The control room doors slid open, admitting Ambassador Zixtal, the station's senior diplomatic officer. The Meridian's iridescent scales shifted colors rapidly, a sign of extreme agitation in their species. Security Chief Chen, the Council requires your assessment. Can you retake environmental control without risking its systems? Before Sarah could answer, the main view screen activated, showing the Kraxen leader from the trading floor incident. His cybernetic enhancements seemed to have multiplied, covering even more of his body now. I am Commander Vexthor of the Kraxen hegemony, he announced. Your weak species have hidden behind regulations and bureaucracy for too long. The strong should rule. This is the natural law of the universe. Sarah stepped forward. Commander, you're committing an act of war against not just this station, but every species represented here. Stand down now, and we can still resolve this diplomatically. Vexthor's organic eye fixed on her. Ah, the human security chief. I wondered if you would be here. You understand strength, don't you? Yet you waste it defending the weak. I understand that strength comes in many forms, Sarah replied. Right now, you're demonstrating the weakest kind, the need to dominate others to prove your own worth. The Kraxen commander's face twisted in rage. You dare. His cybernetic eye pulsed dangerously. Perhaps a demonstration is in order. He gestured to someone off-screen. Shut down gravity control in Section 12B. Sarah's blood ran cold. That was one of the luminary sections. Without gravity control, their crystalline forms would shatter. Wait, she called out, but the screen had already gone dark. Alarms screamed as gravity failed in 12B. On the monitors, they watched in horror as the luminary residents began to break apart, their crystal bodies cracking in the zero-gravity environment. Get emergency teams in there now, Sarah ordered. And someone get me a direct line to Earth Command. This just escalated beyond station security. But even as she gave the orders, Sarah was already formulating a plan. She'd noticed something during Vexthor's transmission, something about the way his new cybernetics pulsed with energy. Lieutenant Rodriguez, pull up the station's power consumption logs for the past 3 days. Focus on unusual patterns in the maintenance sectors. As James worked, Sarah turned to Ambassador Zixtal. Ambassador, I need you to keep the Council occupied. Whatever you do, don't let them agree to any demands. We need time. The meridian scales shifted to a questioning purple. Time for what, Security Chief? Time for humanity to do what it does best, something completely unexpected. She gestured to the station schematic. The Kraxen think they're dealing with a security force bound by regulations and protocols. They're about to learn why humans have a reputation for thinking outside the box. James looked up from his console. Chief, you need to see this. Power consumption in Maintenance Tunnel 47 has been spiking every 6 hours, exactly when the Kraxen's new cybernetic enhancements seemed strongest. Sarah allowed herself a grim smile. They've set up a power relay. Those new cybernetics aren't just for show. They're drawing power directly from our systems, which means they're connected to our grid. James finished, catching on. If we could reverse the power flow, we could overload their systems. Sarah nodded. But we'll need access to the main power controls, which they're watching too closely. She opened a channel to her security teams. All units, this is Chief Chen. I need volunteers for a very risky operation. High chance of casualties, but if we succeed, we save thousands of lives. The responses came in immediately, not just from her human officers, but from every species in the security force. Even the normally cautious Centurions signed on. Sarah felt a surge of pride. This was why humanity had thrived among the stars, not because they were stronger or smarter, but because they inspired others to be brave, to take chances, to fight for what was right. Commander Vexthor thinks he understands human strength, she told her assembled forces. He thinks it's about our willingness to face death. But our real strength has always been in our ability to unite others, to show them that standing together is worth the risk. She pulled up the station schematics one more time, marking entry points and escape routes. This plan breaks about 15 station protocols and violates at least 3 interstellar laws. In other words, it's exactly what they won't expect from station security. Ambassador Zixel's scales had shifted to a deep blue of concern. The Council will never approve such an unorthodox approach. That's why we're not going to tell them, Sarah replied. Sometimes it's better to ask forgiveness than permission, another human trait that comes in handy now and then. As her teams moved into position, Sarah sent a silent apology to the station's founders. What she was about to do would probably rewrite several chapters of the station's security protocols. But then again, humanity's gift to the galaxy had always been showing that sometimes the rules needed to be broken for the greater good. The next few hours would prove whether she was right, or whether the Kraxen's way of raw power would prevail. Either way, Varen Station was about to witness firsthand why, in a crisis, species either ran toward humans or away from them. There was rarely any middle ground. Unexpected allies. In the dimly lit maintenance shaft of Sector 6, Sarah Chen found herself in what might have been the strangest war council in Varen Station's history. Around her crouched representatives from 7 different species, each one traditionally suspicious of the others, now united by desperate circumstances. "Let me make sure I understand your plan correctly," buzzed Kitz, a hive mind drone whose crystalline exoskeleton glittered in the emergency lighting. "You want us to deliberately overload the station's power grid, potentially destroying millions of credits worth of equipment, on the chance that it might disable the Kraxen's cybernetics." "That's oversimplifying it a bit," Sarah replied, "but essentially, yes." "Glorious madness," rumbled Grok, the Ursidian engineer, his massive bear-like form barely fitting in the maintenance tunnel. "This is why we follow humans. You think like drunk quantum particles, impossible to predict, but somehow achieving results." Lieutenant Rodriguez, monitoring the Kraxen's movements on a portable scanner, smiled despite the tension. "I'll take that as a compliment." The luminary representative, its damaged crystal form held together by emergency field generators, pulsed with concerned light patterns. "The risk to the station's systems is considerable. Yet we have already lost 17 of our kind to the Kraxen's actions. Perhaps madness is called for." Sarah laid out the detailed schematics she'd managed to pull from the station's database. "The Kraxen's cybernetics are sophisticated, but they're also greedy. They're drawing massive amounts of power from our systems. We can use that against them, but we'll need everyone's unique abilities to pull it off." She turned to Ketz. "Your people can navigate the smallest maintenance conduits. We need you to position these power modulators at key junction points." She handed over a set of devices her team had hurriedly assembled from spare parts. "The Ursidians," she continued, nodding to Grok, "have the strength to manually override the emergency bulkheads when the power fluctuates. The Luminary can use their natural energy manipulation abilities to help direct the power surge." "And what of the Aquarians?" burbled Chassa, the water-breathing delegate who floated in a portable environment suit. "Our environment makes it difficult to assist in these tunnels." "Actually, your people might have the most important role," Sarah explained. "When we trigger the surge, we'll need to cool the systems immediately to prevent a cascade failure. Your natural ability to control water pressure and temperature will be crucial." The Zentaran security officer, Kix, raised one of his 6 appendages. "Chief, what about the station's won't it try to prevent such a massive system override?" Sarah's expression turned grim. "That's where our Meridian friends come in." She nodded to a color-shifting figure in the corner. "Ambassador Zixtal has agreed to keep the council and the AI occupied with an emergency session on evacuation protocols. A diplomatic distraction." Zixtal's scales rippled with amusement. How delightfully devious. As the various species discussed their roles, Sarah noticed something remarkable. The usual tensions and prejudices that marked their interactions had faded. In their place was a focused determination, a shared purpose that transcended their differences. "There's something else you should know," she added, her voice growing serious. "This plan, it's not exactly by the book. If it fails, I'll take full responsibility, but anyone who participates risks serious consequences." Kitz's antennae twitched. "You humans have a saying, do you not? In for a penny, in for a pound." "Actually," Rodriguez chuckled, "I think in this case it's more like go big or go home." "We have no home to go to if we fail," the luminary pulsed softly. "The Kraxen will not stop with this station. They seek to remake the galaxy in their image of strength." Grok bared his teeth in what might have been a smile or a snarl. "Then we show them true strength comes in many forms. Even small humans in maintenance tunnels." Sarah checked her chronometer. They had less than an hour before the Kraxen's next power cycle. "One last thing," she said, looking at each alien face in turn. "Whatever happens, whatever you see or hear, stick to the plan. Humans have a reputation for improvising in crisis situations. Trust that if something goes wrong, we'll find a way to make it work." "How can you be so certain?" Shasa burbled. "Because that's what humans do," Sarah replied simply. "We don't know how to give up. Sometimes that makes us dangerous, sometimes it makes us miraculous, but it always makes us interesting." As the various teams moved out to their positions, Sarah felt a familiar mix of anxiety and excitement. This was humanity's gift to the galaxy, not just the ability to face impossible odds, but the knack for bringing others along on their crazy adventures. Rodriguez waited until the others were out of earshot before speaking. "Chief, about those consequences you mentioned. Earth Command isn't going to like us risking an international incident." "Earth Command doesn't like a lot of things we do," Sarah responded, checking her equipment one last time. "But they keep putting humans in charge of these stations because we get results. Usually unconventional, probably illegal, definitely interesting results. And if this doesn't work," Sarah allowed herself a small smile, "then we'll try something even crazier. That's another thing the galaxy has learned about humans. We've got backup plans for our backup plans, and most of them break at least a few laws of physics." She activated her comm unit, connecting to all teams. "Everyone in position. Remember, when this starts, it's going to get chaotic fast. But if there's one thing humans know how to handle, it's chaos." As acknowledgments came in from each team, Sarah took a deep breath. They were about to either save the station or make things much, much worse. But that was the human way. Go big, break rules, save lives, and sort out the paperwork later. The galaxy was about to get another lesson in why humans were both the most sought-after allies and the most feared opponents in a crisis. It was time to show the Kraxen that true strength wasn't about domination. It was about bringing people together to accomplish the impossible. The human factor. Power surge in 30 seconds. Lieutenant Rodriguez's voice crackled over the comm. "Everyone ready." Sarah Chen crouched in the access tunnel above environmental control, watching the Kraxen warriors through a maintenance grate. Their cybernetic enhancements pulsed with stolen energy, growing stronger by the second. But that strength was about to become their greatest weakness. "Remember," she whispered into her comm, "timing is everything. One mistake and..." The station's emergency sirens suddenly blared to life. Sarah's heart stopped as she watched the Kraxen warriors snap to attention. "Intruder alert in Sector 4, announced the station eye. Multiple unauthorized life forms detected. That wasn't part of the plan. Status report. Sarah hissed into her comm. What's happening in Sector 4? Chief. Kix's voice was tense. The hive mind drones. They've gone rogue. They're attacking the Kraxen's secondary positions. Sarah swore under her breath. The hive mind had gotten impatient, jumped the gun. Now everything was falling apart before they'd even started. Ketz. She called to the hive mind representative. What's going on? The collective saw an opportunity. Ketz buzzed apologetically. We function on consensus. I was outvoted. Through the grate, Sarah watched Vex Thor barking orders to his warriors. Some were already heading toward Sector 4. Their carefully planned trap was unraveling. New plan, Sarah announced, her mind racing. Grok, forget the bulkheads. Get your team to Sector 4 and help the hive mind. Make it look good. We need to sell this distraction. With pleasure, the Ursidian rumbled. We are very good at looking chaotic. Sarah turned to Rodriguez. Start the power surge now. But Chief, the modulators aren't all in position. Now, Lieutenant, sometimes you have to work with the chaos. As Rodriguez initiated the sequence, Sarah pulled out her plasma cutter. Time to add some human unpredictability to the mix. Luminary team, she called. Forget the power distribution. Focus everything on protecting your own section. Aquarians, stand by for emergency cooling. This is going to get hot. She cut through the grate just as the first power surge hit. The lights flickered, and the Kraxen warrior's cybernetics sputtered. Vex Thor roared in pain and anger as his enhancements sparked. Sarah dropped into the room, rolling to absorb the impact. Having power problems, Commander. You. Vex Thor snarled, his organic eye blazing with fury. What have you done? The thing about humans, Sarah said, ducking behind a control panel as plasma bolts filled the air, is that we're really good at improvising. The second power surge hit harder than the first. Without the modulators in place to control it, raw energy coursed through the station's systems. The Kraxen cybernetics went haywire, some warriors collapsing as their enhancements overloaded. Aquarian team, Sarah shouted into her comm. Emergency cooling, now. The station's temperature regulation systems suddenly flooded with supercooled water, guided by the Aquarian's precise control. Steam hissed from overheating panels as the cold fought against the power surge's heat. Vex Thor staggered but remained standing, his advanced cybernetics adapting faster than his warriors. You would risk destroying the station just to stop us. No, Sarah corrected him. We're risking the station to save it. There's a difference. She noticed his cybernetic eye twitching, tracking multiple threats. The hive mind attack had divided his forces. The power surge had weakened them. And now, by the way, she added, while you were focused on us, did you happen to notice what the Luminary were doing with all that excess energy? Vex Thor's organic eye widened as crystalline forms began materializing around the room, their bodies absorbing and redirecting the surge's power. The Luminary had turned the station's energy crisis into a weapon. Impossible, he growled. The Luminary are pacifists. Usually, Sarah agreed. But you killed 17 of their people. Turns out even pacifists have their breaking point. Humans aren't the only ones who can surprise you. The battle that followed was chaos incarnate. Hive mind drones and Ursidians crashed through one entrance, while luminary energy forms materialized through another. The Kraxen fought back furiously, but their greatest advantage, their cybernetic enhancements, had become a liability. Sarah moved through the chaos, coordinating the different species, turning their panic into purpose. This was humanity's true strength, not just adapting to chaos, but helping others do the same. Chief, Rodriguez called out. Station systems are reaching critical levels. We need to end this now. Sarah looked at Vex Thor, who was still fighting despite his malfunctioning cybernetics. Last chance, Commander. Surrender, or we'll show you just how crazy humans can get. Never, he snarled. The strong do not yield. Fine. Sarah sighed. Luminary team, hit them with everything you've got. Aquarians, prepare for maximum cooling. Everyone else, you might want to hold onto something. She pulled out a small device, a makeshift electromagnetic pulse generator her team had cobbled together from spare parts. Not powerful enough to affect the station's shielded systems, but more than enough to overload cybernetic enhancements already stressed by power surges. The thing about strength, she told Vexthor, is that it comes in many forms. The strongest beings I know are the ones who can adapt, who can work together, who can turn their enemies' power against them. She triggered the device. The resulting cascade of failures was spectacular. Kraxan warriors fell like dominoes as their cybernetics shut down completely. Emergency systems kicked in throughout the station, Aquarian-controlled coolant preventing any critical damage. When it was over, Vexthor lay twitching on the deck, his mighty cybernetic enhancements reduced to smoking scrap. Sarah stood over him, her impromptu alliance of species behind her. That, she said, is why you don't underestimate humans. We don't just break rules. We rewrite them. Understanding humanity. In the aftermath of what station residents were already calling the Kraxan incident, Sarah Chen stood before the station council, facing representatives from 24 species. The chamber hummed with subdued conversation, a mix of praise and concern about the unprecedented events that had unfolded. Security Chief Chen. Ambassador Zixtel's scales shimmered with formal patterns. You stand before this council having violated 17 station protocols, caused damage to critical systems, and initiated unauthorized military action against representatives of a recognized species. The meridian paused, colors shifting to a warmer hue. You also saved thousands of lives and prevented what could have become an interstellar war. Sarah stood straight, hands clasped behind her back. With respect, Ambassador, I did what any human would have done in that situation. Precisely the point under discussion, rumbled the Ursidian counselor. This tendency of humans to disregard rules in favor of, what do you call it? Getting the job done. Sarah supplied. Yes, that. It is simultaneously your most admirable and most troubling characteristic. The luminary representative pulsed with gentle light. We have analyzed the events extensively. The human factor in this crisis proved decisive, but not in the way one might expect. It was not merely their willingness to take risks or break rules that saved us. Sarah watched as the luminary's crystal form projected images of the battle. Humans and aliens working together, adapting, combining their strengths in ways never before seen. The true human factor, the luminary continued, was their ability to inspire cooperation between species that traditionally avoid each other, to turn chaos into opportunity, to make the impossible seem merely improbable. Kits buzzed in agreement. The Hive Mind Collective has revised its assessment of human unpredictability. What we once saw as a weakness, we now recognize as an evolutionary advantage. They do not merely adapt to chaos. They harness it. That's a pretty way of saying we make things up as we go along, Sarah said, earning a few chuckles from the human observers. The Aquarian representative burbled through their translator. We have a saying. Still waters grow stagnant. Perhaps the galaxy needed the turbulence humans bring. They force us to question our assumptions, to evolve beyond our comfortable patterns. Vexthor, stripped of his cybernetics and bound by containment fields, snarled from his position in the defendant's area. They are dangerous, unpredictable. They should be contained before they spread their chaos further. You still don't understand. Sarah turned to face him. Our chaos, as you call it, isn't about destruction. It's about possibility. Humans don't break rules just to break them. We do it when the rules themselves become barriers to progress, to justice, to survival. She gestured to the assembled council. Look around this room. Before humans joined the galactic community, how often did your species cooperate? How many of you would have worked together to save this station? We may be chaotic, but we bring people together. At what cost? Vexthor demanded. You risk everything on your hunches, your improvised plans. Yes, Sarah acknowledged. We do. Because sometimes the biggest risk is taking no risk at all. The Kraxen believe in the power of strength, but you define strength too narrowly. True strength isn't about domination. It's about adaptation, cooperation, and the courage to try something new. Ambassador Zixtel's scales rippled thoughtfully. Perhaps this is why humans have become so essential to our various communities. You force us to grow beyond our limitations, to imagine new possibilities. And sometimes, Rodriguez added from his position near the door, to believe 6 impossible things before breakfast. The council chamber filled with the various sounds of alien amusement, clicks, burbles, hums, and crystalline chimes. The council has reached a consensus, Zixtal announced. The actions taken during the crisis, while unorthodox, were necessary and ultimately beneficial. Furthermore, we are implementing new protocols for crisis response, incorporating what we now call the human element. Controlled flexibility in emergency situations. Sarah raised an eyebrow. You're actually making rule-breaking an official policy. We prefer to think of it as adaptive response protocols. The ambassador's scales flickered with amusement. It sounds more official that way. As the council session concluded, Sarah found herself surrounded by representatives from various species, each wanting to express their gratitude or discuss the implications of recent events. You know what the really interesting thing is, Rodriguez said as they walked back to the security office. Every species here thinks they're starting to understand humans better now. Sarah smiled. And are they? Not really. But maybe they're starting to understand why that's not necessarily a bad thing. The galaxy could use a little more human unpredictability. Looking out at the station's sprawling arms, where dozens of species now work together more closely than ever before, Sarah couldn't help but agree. Humans might be chaotic, unpredictable, and prone to breaking rules, but they also brought hope, innovation, and the courage to imagine a better future. In the end, that was humanity's greatest contribution to the galaxy, not their strength or their technology, but their ability to show others that the impossible was always worth trying, that differences could become advantages, and that sometimes the craziest plan was the best one. The galaxy might never fully understand humans, but maybe that was exactly what it needed.